The massive viewing screen in the Galactic Council's main chamber showed another star system vanishing into darkness. The assembled representatives of 24 advanced civilizations watched in horror as billions of lives disappeared in mere minutes. This was the 12th system lost in the past month. Council leader Marcus stood at the center of the circular chamber, his blue-tinted skin pale with worry. His four-fingered hands gripped the speaking podium tightly as he addressed the gathering. The Void Fleet has struck again. The Centauri Defense Force didn't even have time to send a distress signal. The chamber erupted in fearful whispers. The Centauri were known for their powerful energy shields and advanced weapon systems. If they fell so quickly, what hope did anyone have? Our best sensors can't even properly track these vessels, the military advisor said, stepping forward. His metallic uniform gleamed under the chamber's lights. They seemed to absorb all forms of energy we direct at them. Plasma cannons, laser arrays, even our newest quantum disruptors. Nothing works. The viewing screen shifted to show grainy footage of the attack. The Void Fleet's ships were like patches of moving darkness against the stars, their surfaces seeming to swallow light itself. They moved with impossible grace, ignoring the laws of physics that govern normal space travel. The Centauri managed to land a direct hit with their strongest weapon. The military advisor continued, pointing to a specific frame. 100 terawatts of pure energy, and it passed right through them like they weren't even there. An elderly representative from the Arcturus system slowly stood up. We've lost contact with our outer colonies. The Void Fleet is moving faster than we anticipated. At their current pace, they'll reach our core worlds within 3 months. The council chamber descended into chaos. Some representatives demanded immediate evacuation of threatened systems. Others called for combining their fleets into one massive force. A few simply sat in shocked silence. Council leader Marcus raised his hand for silence. We've tried everything in our arsenal. Our most advanced ships, our strongest weapons, our best shields. Nothing affects these invaders. They exist partially in another dimension, making our conventional weapons useless. There might be one option left, said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber. All heads turned to look at Ambassador Reed, the representative from the Proxima system. He was known for his controversial views, especially regarding the younger races. The humans, he said simply. The chamber erupted again, this time in protests and dismissals. Those primitives. They barely have faster-than-light travel. They still use projectile weapons. Ambassador Reed waited for the outcry to die down. Yes, they still use what we consider primitive technology, but that's exactly why we should consider them. They think differently. While we focused on energy weapons and shield systems, they continued developing kinetic weapons and unconventional tactics. Their isolation from galactic society might have given them a unique perspective we desperately need. Council leader Marcus frowned. We deliberately kept them isolated because their approach to warfare was too unpredictable, too dangerous. And now that very unpredictability might be our salvation, Reed replied. Our sophisticated weapons are useless against an enemy that exists partially in another dimension. Perhaps it's time to try something different. Something primitive. Something human. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. On the viewing screen, another star system began to fade into darkness. Marcus looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative. We are facing extinction. Our civilization, our achievements, everything we've built over millennia. All of it will be lost if we don't stop the Void Fleet. Perhaps it's time to admit that our advanced technology has become our limitation. He straightened his shoulders, coming to a decision. Prepare a delegation. We're going to Earth. The fate of the galaxy now rested on a species that still fought throwing rocks, albeit very fast and very precisely, was a valid combat strategy. The irony was lost on no one present in the chamber. The United Earth Defense Council meeting room was silent as the hologram finished playing. The recording showed entire star systems vanishing into darkness, consumed by ships that seemed to be made of living shadow. General Parker, a weathered veteran with gray hair and stern features, stood at the head of the table, watching his colleagues' reactions. "So the high and mighty Galactic Council finally needs our help," he said, his voice carrying a hint of satisfaction. "After 50 years of treating us like dangerous children." Admiral Wilson, a sharp-featured woman with commanding presence, leaned forward. "They're not wrong about us being dangerous. Remember the Mars incident? We nearly started a war because our ships still use nuclear pulse drives. They thought we were launching planet-killer weapons." The room filled with quiet chuckles. Humanity's primitive technology had always been a source of tension with the galactic community. While other races developed elegant energy drives, humans stubbornly stuck to explosions and kinetic weapons, constantly refining and improving them. "The Galactic Council is waiting in orbit," said Defense Secretary Thompson, tapping his tablet. "Their flagship is keeping its distance. Apparently, they're still nervous about our orbital defense platforms." The defense platforms were another point of contention. While other races rely on energy shields, Earth protected itself with clouds of smart missiles and kinetic interceptors. The aliens found it barbaric. Humans found it effective. "Show me their official request again," General Parker said. The hologram changed to display a formal document. The Council was requesting Earth's help in fighting the Void Fleet, offering to lift all technology restrictions in exchange. "They're desperate," Admiral Wilson noted. "Look at the concessions they're offering. Full membership in the Council, unrestricted access to their tech database, and removal of all quarantine zones around our colonies." Dr. Roberts, head of special projects, cleared his throat. This might be the perfect time to reveal Project Thunderbolt. The room grew tense. Project Thunderbolt was Earth's best-kept secret, a warship unlike anything the galaxy had seen. While other races built massive dreadnoughts with crews of thousands, Thunderbolt was small, agile, and designed to be operated by just 6 people. "Are you sure it's ready?" Secretary Thompson asked. Dr. Roberts nodded. "We've completed all tests. The quantum-anchored kinetic weapons work perfectly. The dimensional sensors can track objects trying to hide between reality states. And the crew. The crew is ready," General Parker finished. "They've been training for 3 years. Captain Miller and his team are the best we have." Admiral Wilson stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the distant shape of the alien flagship. "Think about it. They expect us to send a fleet. Instead, we'll send one ship, a single ship to do what their combined fleets couldn't. They'll think we're insulting them," Secretary Thompson warned. "No," General Parker said with a slight smile. "They'll think we're crazy. And that's exactly what we want. The Void Fleet won't expect a single ship. They won't expect our primitive weapons, and they certainly won't expect what Thunderbolt can do." The Defense Council voted unanimously. Within an hour, Captain Miller and his crew were notified. The Thunderbolt, hidden in an underwater dock in the Pacific Ocean, began its launch sequence. As the alien delegation waited in orbit, expecting to negotiate for a human fleet, they had no idea that Earth's response was already rising from the depths of the ocean. A single ship carrying humanity's finest warriors and their most advanced primitive technology. The Galactic Council had kept humans isolated because they feared humanity's unconventional approach to warfare. They were about to discover that their fears were well-founded, but this time, that very thing they feared would be their salvation. In the underwater dock, the Thunderbolt's engines began to glow. Captain Miller's voice came over the command channel. "All systems ready. Beginning ascent. Operation Voidbreaker is go." The hunt was about to begin. The alien delegation stood in stunned silence as they watched the Thunderbolt break through the ocean's surface. Water cascaded off its dark hull in sheets. Unlike the sleek, gleaming ships of the Galactic Council, the human warship looked brutal and purposeful. Its angular shape reminded them of the ancient predators that once ruled Earth's oceans. "This is your response." Ambassador Reed asked, trying to hide his disappointment. One ship, against the entire Void Fleet. Captain Miller stood tall on the command bridge, his experienced eyes scanning the constant flow of data across his screens. "One ship is all we need," he replied calmly. Around him, his 5 crew members worked with practiced efficiency, each handling systems that would normally require dozens of operators on an alien vessel. Dr. Alan West, the chief engineer, monitored the ship's revolutionary power systems. Main reactor stable. Quantum anchor drives synchronized. All weapons systems green. Lieutenant Maria Torres, at Tactical, ran through combat simulations. The holographic displays showed projections of the Thunderbolt engaging multiple Void ships simultaneously. Combat computers updated with all known Void Fleet tactics. Countermeasures ready. The alien representatives watched in growing confusion as the human crew continued their preparations. Their own warships required massive crews and complex command structures. This human approach seemed impossibly simple. "Perhaps we should explain the Thunderbolt's capabilities," Commander David Stone suggested, noting the aliens' concern. He pulled up a technical overview on the main screen. The aliens learned that while they had focused on making bigger ships with more powerful energy weapons, humans had taken a different path. The Thunderbolt was small, but every inch had a purpose. Its main weapons were railguns that fired specially designed shells, projectiles that could lock onto targets across dimensional boundaries. "You're still using physical projectiles?" one alien scientist asked, horrified. "Against ships that can phase between dimensions." Dr. Thomas Reed, the science officer, smiled. "That's exactly why they'll work. Your energy weapons pass right through the Void Fleet because they exist partially out of phase with our reality. But our quantum-anchored shells, they'll follow them across dimensions. You can't dodge what exists everywhere you try to hide." Lieutenant Robert Hayes, working at navigation, added another surprising detail. "We've also studied your records of the Void Fleet's movements. They follow patterns your predictive computers missed because you think about space travel differently than we do." The Thunderbolt's bridge was a marvel of human engineering, where alien ships spread controls across multiple decks. Everything here was within arm's reach. The crew worked like a single organism, each member anticipating the other's needs. "We've loaded enough ammunition to destroy a small moon," Captain Miller explained. "The hull is lined with metamaterials that absorb sensor scans. We can track dimensional shifts that your sensors can't even detect. And most importantly," he paused, looking each alien in the eye, "we fight dirty." The aliens shifted uncomfortably. Human combat doctrine had always disturbed them. Humans didn't believe in fair fights. They believed in winning. "Combat simulation complete," Lieutenant Torres announced. "Based on known Void Fleet behavior patterns, we project a 73% success rate for our primary strategy." "What about the other 27%? Ambassador Reed asked nervously. "That's why we have backup plans," Commander Stone replied. "And backup plans for our backup plans. Humans are very good at improvising." The ship's engines hummed to life, a deep sound that vibrated through the hull. On the main screen, the course was already plotted to the latest known location of the Void Fleet. "Final checks complete," Dr. West reported. "All systems operating at peak efficiency." Captain Miller took his command seat, his movements calm and assured. "Send word to the Council. Tell them Operation Voidbreaker has begun. We hunt." As the Thunderbolt rose into orbit, its dark hull reflecting the stars, the alien delegation finally understood why humans had been kept isolated. They weren't primitive at all. They were different, and different was exactly what the galaxy needed right now. The hunt for the Void Fleet was about to begin, and humanity was bringing their own special brand of warfare to the fight. The Thunderbolt drifted silently through the debris field of what was once a thriving solar system. Its dark hull blended perfectly with the surrounding space, making it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. "Contact," Lieutenant Torres whispered, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. 3 void ships, bearing 047. They're sweeping the system debris. Captain Miller leaned forward in his command chair. This was their first real look at the enemy that had terrorized the galaxy. The void ships moved like oil on water, their surfaces seeming to bend light around them. Dimensional shift detected, Dr. Reed reported from his science station. They're partially phased out of our reality, just like the report said. Commander Stone studied the sensor readings. No wonder the Council's weapons were useless. You can't hit what's only half there. Watch this, Dr. West said with a hint of pride. He tapped a series of commands into his console, activating quantum anchor sensors. The main screen changed dramatically. Where normal sensors showed only shadowy shapes, the Thunderbolt's special sensors revealed the true nature of the void ships. They existed in multiple dimensional states simultaneously, shifting between realities like a swimmer moving through water. Target the nearest scout, Captain Miller ordered. Single shot, low yield. Let's test our theory. Lieutenant Torres selected one of the smaller void ships. The Thunderbolt's main railgun adjusted silently, tracking the target across dimensional boundaries. Target locked. Quantum anchor engage. Firing. The railgun fired with barely a shudder. The specially designed shell streaked across space, leaving a trail of distorted reality in its wake. The void ship noticed the attack and began its standard defense, phasing further out of normal space. It didn't help. The quantum-anchored shell followed, adjusting its own dimensional state to match its target. The impact was spectacular. The void ship's surface rippled like disturbed water, then cracked open as the shell forced it to exist fully in normal space. Direct hit, Torres exclaimed. Target is destabilizing. Complete dimensional collapse. They're stuck in normal space. The remaining void ships reacted immediately, but their confusion was obvious. They'd never encountered a weapon that could affect them across dimensional boundaries. They're trying to signal for help, Reed reported. Their communications are shifting through multiple phase states. Not anymore, West replied, activating another of the Thunderbolt's special systems. Quantum jamming field active. They're as blind as we want them to be. Captain Miller allowed himself a small smile. Take the second one. Multiple shots this time. Let's see how their armor holds up when they can't hide between realities. The Thunderbolt's railgun spoke again, sending a barrage of quantum-anchored shells at the second void ship. Unable to phase out of reality, the enemy vessel took direct hits. Its seemingly invincible hull shattered under the impact of good old-fashioned kinetic energy. The third void ship attempted to escape, accelerating rapidly and shifting through multiple dimensional states. Lieutenant Hayes adjusted the Thunderbolt's course smoothly, matching the enemy's movements. They really don't know what to do when their phasing trick doesn't work, Stone observed. Target locked, Torres reported. Ready to fire. Wait, Miller ordered, watching the enemy ship's erratic movement. Let it run. We want survivors to report back. Let them tell their fleet about the ship that can touch the untouchable. The crew watched as the void ship fled, its movements panicked and uncoordinated. For the first time since they appeared, the void fleet had met something they couldn't simply phase away from. Send word to Earth, Miller commanded. First engagement successful. The quantum anchor works exactly as designed. Their dimensional shifting is no longer an advantage. As the Thunderbolt moved away from the debris field, its crew began analyzing the data from their first real combat. The Void Fleet's greatest strength, their ability to exist outside normal space, had just become their greatest weakness. The hunt was no longer theoretical. The Predator had drawn first blood. News of the Thunderbolt's success spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Void Fleet, for the first time, showed signs of hesitation. Their once unstoppable advance slowed as they adapted to this new threat. The Thunderbolt's crew gathered in the tactical room, studying reports from their sensor buoys scattered across dozens star systems. Around them, holographic displays showed the movement patterns of Void Fleet ships. They've changed their tactics. Lieutenant Torres noted, pointing to the latest data. No more small groups. They're moving in large formations now. Scared, Commander Stone said with satisfaction. They're not used to being hunted. Captain Miller studied the movement patterns carefully. The Void Fleet was massive, hundreds of ships strong. But now they were behaving like prey, clustering together for safety. It was exactly what he had hoped for. Look at their new flight patterns, Lieutenant Hayes said, highlighting several routes on the main display. They're avoiding asteroid fields, nebulas, anything that could hide a ship our size. Dr. West smiled at his console. Good. Let them waste fuel taking the long way around. Our reactor can keep us running for months without resupply. The Thunderbolt had been stalking the Void Fleet for weeks now, striking isolated groups and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. Each encounter provided more data about their enemy's capabilities and limitations. New contact, Dr. Reed called out suddenly. Massive energy spike in the Arcturus sector. Looks like they're gathering for something big. The tactical display updated, showing over 50 void ships converging on a single point. It was the largest concentration they'd seen since the hunt began. They're not just gathering, Torres realized, analyzing the data. That's a search pattern. They're looking for us. Captain Miller's eyes narrowed. They're tired of being hunted. Now they want to force a confrontation on their terms. He turned to his crew. Opinions. It's a trap, Commander Stone said immediately. They want us to attack that concentration of ships. Even with our quantum anchors, those numbers would overwhelm us. Agreed, said Dr. West. But look at what they're leaving exposed. He highlighted several other sectors on the map. They'd stripped their patrols from 3 major supply lines to gather this force. Miller nodded slowly, a plan forming. They think like advanced aliens. Everything has to be direct, overwhelming force. But he smiled. We think like humans. The crew gathered around as Miller outlined his strategy. Instead of attacking the gathered fleet directly, they would strike at the now vulnerable supply lines. Without support ships, the massive Void Fleet concentration would be forced to break up and protect their logistics. Hit and run, Torres said, understanding the plan. We bleed them with 1,000 cuts instead of trying for one killing blow. Exactly, Miller confirmed. Hayes, plot us a course through the Antares Nebula. We'll use the radiation to mask our approach. Reed, calibrate the sensors for long-range detection through the nebula gases. What about their dimensional shifting? Stone asked. They'll try to phase through the nebula to avoid the interference. Let them try, Dr. West replied. The quantum wake from their phase shifting will interact with the nebula gases. It'll light them up like a Christmas tree on our sensors. The crew moved to their stations with practiced efficiency. The Thunderbolt's engines hummed to life, barely a whisper in the vast silence of space. Remember, Miller said as they prepared to move out, they expect us to fight like the council races. Direct, honorable, predictable. We're going to show them how humans wage war. The Thunderbolt slipped into the swirling gases of the nebula, its dark hull vanishing from both normal space and dimensional sensors. The Void Fleet thought they were setting a trap for the human ship. They were about to learn a harsh lesson about the difference between being a hunter and being hunted. The real war was about to begin. 3 months into the hunt, the Thunderbolt's cargo hold contained something invaluable, the wreckage of a Void Fleet command ship. The scattered pieces of dark metal seemed to drink in the light, even after being forced fully into normal space. Dr. Reed hadn't left his lab for 2 days, analyzing every fragment with the ship's advanced sensors. Captain Miller stood watching as holographic displays showed the results of countless scans. You're not going to believe this, Reed said, his voice filled with excitement. These ships weren't built. They were grown. The entire command crew gathered around the largest piece of wreckage. Under microscopic examination, the metal showed patterns more like living tissue than manufactured materials. That's impossible, Dr. West argued. No organic material could survive phase shifting between dimensions. It's not exactly organic, Reed explained. He pulled up more detailed scans. Look at the molecular structure. It's artificial, but it's designed to adapt and evolve. These ships are basically giant single-celled organisms. Lieutenant Torres studied the tactical implications. That explains why they can coordinate so perfectly. They're not just a fleet, they're parts of the same organism. But who built them? Commander Stone asked the question everyone was thinking. And why? Dr. Reed pointed to a section of code he'd extracted from the ship's memory systems. I found this buried in their base programming. It's old, incredibly old. These ships were created by a race that died out millions of years ago. The holographic display showed symbols that seemed to writhe and change, existing in multiple states, just like the ships themselves. Reed's translation program struggled to make sense of them. They called themselves the Builders, Reed continued. From what I can piece together, they were obsessed with purifying the galaxy. They created the Void Fleet as a weapon to eliminate what they saw as impure life forms. But the Builders are gone, Miller noted. Why is their weapon still active? Because that's what they designed it to do, Reed said grimly. The Void Fleet is autonomous. It follows its original programming. Seek out technological civilizations and destroy them. It's been dormant for millions of years, waiting for life in the galaxy to reach a certain technological level. Lieutenant Hayes spoke up from his station. That's why they ignore less developed worlds. They're programmed to target civilizations that reach a specific technological threshold. Dr. West was examining the metal's molecular structure, the phase-shifting ability. It wasn't meant to be a weapon originally. It was a preservation system, designed to keep the fleet safe until it was needed. And now it's their weakness, Miller said thoughtfully. They can't turn it off. They're locked into behavioral patterns millions of years old. Commander Stone saw where this was leading. They can't adapt to our quantum anchors because adaptation to that kind of weapon wasn't part of their original programming. Exactly, Reed confirmed. The Builders never imagined someone would develop weapons that could attack across dimensional boundaries. The Void Fleet's greatest strength is also their greatest limitation. Captain Miller stood silently for a moment, processing this information. Can you trace their control signals? Find out where they're all linked to? Reed nodded slowly. Yes, I think I can. The wreckage still maintains a faint connection to their network. If we follow it, we can find their central node. Torres finished. Their heart. Better, Miller said, a determined look in his eyes. We can find their brain. The original control system the Builders created to coordinate the entire fleet. The crew looked at each other as the implications sank in. They had started this mission thinking they were fighting an invading army. Instead, they were dealing with an ancient weapon that had broken free of its long-dead master's control. Plot the course, Miller ordered. It's time to end this. The Builders created this weapon to destroy civilizations they deemed impure. Let's show them how impure humanity deals with threats to our galaxy. The hunt was entering its final phase. The predator had found its prey's weakness, and now it was time to strike at the heart of the swarm. The thunderbolt emerged from hyperspace at the edge of a massive debris field. Ahead lay the remains of an ancient ring world, its broken circle stretching across millions of kilometers of space. At its center, a dark structure pulsed with dimensional energy. That's it, Dr. Reed confirmed, his sensors focused on the structure. The Builder's control node. It's broadcasting commands to every void ship in the galaxy. Captain Miller studied the tactical display. Hundreds of void ships surrounded the structure, their dark forms creating a living barrier. They've been waiting for us. Multiple dimensional signatures, Lieutenant Torres reported. They're shifting between realities faster than we've ever seen. The energy output is massive. Commander Stone pointed to something on the display. Look at their formation. They're not just defending. They're drawing power from the control node. That's why they're stronger here. More power won't help them, Dr. West said confidently. Our quantum anchors can still lock them in place. They're just making themselves easier to track. Captain Miller stood from his chair, looking at each crew member in turn. Everything we've done has led to this moment. The galaxy's watching. Let's show them how humanity fights. The Thunderbolt's engines roared to life, pushing the ship forward into the debris field. Lieutenant Hayes' hands danced across his controls, guiding them through the maze of ancient metal. Multiple contacts closing. Torres called out. They're trying to box us in. Let them come, Miller ordered. West, initiate Protocol Omega. Dr. West grinned as he activated the system they'd prepared for exactly this moment. The Thunderbolt's hull began resonating at a specific frequency, creating a quantum disruption field that spread outward like a shockwave. The nearest void ships shuddered as the field hit them. Their dimensional shifting became erratic, forcing them to exist more fully in normal space. The quantum-anchored shells from the Thunderbolt's railguns found their marks with devastating accuracy. Push forward, Miller commanded. Hayes, get us closer to that control node. The Thunderbolt dove deeper into the enemy formation. Its small size, originally mocked by the Galactic Council, now proved to be a crucial advantage. The ship wove through the chaos like a needle through fabric, its quantum wake disrupting every void ship it passed. Energy spike. Reed warned. The control node is charging some kind of weapon. The ancient structure began to pulse with blinding light. Space itself seemed to tear open around it as it channeled power from multiple dimensions. All power to forward shields. Miller ordered. West, give me everything the reactor has. The Void Fleet's final defense revealed itself, a beam of pure dimensional energy that could erase anything it touched from existence. It lashed out at the Thunderbolt like an angry god's spear. But humanity had planned for this too. The Thunderbolt's specially designed shields didn't try to block the beam. Instead, they redirected it, using the enemy's own dimensional energy against them. The beam curved around the ship and struck the control node itself. Direct hit. Torres shouted triumphantly. The node's dimensional field is collapsing. Fire everything we have, Miller commanded. Don't let them stabilize. The Thunderbolt's railguns spoke one final time. Quantum-anchored shells struck the damaged control node in perfect sequence, forcing it fully into normal space. The ancient structure, never designed to exist in a single dimension, began to break apart. Around them, the Void Fleet ships started to fail. Without the control node's coordination, their complex dimensional shifting became chaotic. Some vanished completely, lost between realities. Others materialized fully, becoming easy targets for the Thunderbolt's weapons. Control node is critical, Reed reported. Total collapse in 10 seconds. Hayes, get us out of here, Miller ordered calmly. Let's go home. The Thunderbolt turned away from the destruction as the builder's ancient weapon finally died. The explosion rippled through multiple dimensions, a spectacular end to a threat millions of years in the making. Humanity's primitive approach had succeeded where the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had failed. Sometimes, the oldest solutions were still the best. You just had to be creative about how you used them. The galaxy was safe, and humanity had earned its place among the stars.